Your last bowl game, you guys were good when you were at Colorado. The last time you were in Colorado was good was when you were there. What bowl games did you go to?
Oh, gosh. The last one I honestly don't remember that well. I think it was in Orlando. I was concussed pretty bad in that Big 12 championship game, so I don't have a great recollection. But it was in Orlando because we went to Disney World. So it's like the Citrus Bowl or it was like the Champs Bowl or something like that. I don't remember.
All right. So, do you consider the bowls an enjoyable trip? Were they, I mean, you went to how many bowl games? Three bowl games?
Three, yeah. And I thought it was incredibly valuable and rewarding. It is something that I think makes college football really special. It's great for development. And regardless of if you want to call them meaningless or not meaningful, I think that within programs they are great. Like I said, as a player, it's a great reward. It's kind of like the the 58th team that gets into the NCAA tournament or even getting to the NIT tournament. It's kind of a validation for somewhat of a quality season. Which not everyone gets because obviously college football and college basketball are so large, to have a playoff that would encompass a quarter or half the league like we do in the NBA or in the NFL, it would just be too large. And I know we're getting to that point with the NCAA basketball tournament, but you get the kind of the gist. So I really enjoy the bowl system. And like I said, I think more so than anything, it is meant for development.
Joel Klatt joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show on CBS Sports Radio. You offered up some college football changes, 3, I believe, college football changes. First, what prompted you on wanting to tweet out 3 college football changes?
Well, I sent out a bunch. There was kind of a line of tweets, and it was really in line with this whole conversation that we've got going on right now with Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. And I feel like so many times, and I don't know if you feel this way or not, but maybe it's the same in college basketball as it is in college football. I feel like we always talk about the symptom and not the cause of things. And we constantly think of these little fixes, right? And to me, I think that there are like bigger issues with college football. And so we were talking about some of those, obviously, with McCaffrey and Fournette. So I just started to lay out like, hey, here are the things that I would change about the game of college football if I were in charge. And I just started throwing those out. And those 3 that I sent out that were kind of the first and foremost are ones that I feel like could be enacted right away. And that's how I kind of got to it, because I would love to change the conference format and how we schedule non-conference games, but that would take so long and it's so cumbersome that's kind of a big overarching change, whereas these, you could do it next season. And I think that would really help. And forgive me if I don't mention the right one, but the 3 that I sent out were don't stop the game clock after first downs outside of the last 2 minutes, 1 yard buffer for man downfield, not 3, and red shirts eligible for the bowl.
Okay, let's start with the first one, that the don't stop the game clock after first down outside of the last 2 minutes. That's because the games are just too long, right? Like the games are just getting way too long.
See, I think that would be a great unintended consequence of not stopping the clock. I think that's what a lot of people would talk about, but I actually believe, Doug, that it's a player safety issue. Because if you don't stop the game clock after first downs for the entire game, you're going to knock out about 120 to 180, depending on the tempo that you play with for your team. You're going to knock that many snaps out of your season. Well, that's a game or 2 for players. So if I'm saying that we're going to play the same number of games and yet I'm going to take away hits or the potential for hits, I actually believe that is a huge player safety issue. And to be honest with you, I'm shocked, if not floored, that it hasn't already been changed. I mean, that is a tangible player safety change that should be done right away, and it hasn't been.
The 1 yard buffer for man downfield, why?
Well, first of all, it would mirror the NFL rule. I'm not trying to be the NFL as much as I'm trying to help the officials officiate the game. If you talk to any official, they would tell you that it's impossible to officiate the 3 yard buffer, which is now what we have, which is why you see all these RPOs. It makes it impossible for defenders, puts them in precarious spots, in particular linebackers and safeties. The RPOs are run pass option offensive plays. That's almost exclusively what some offenses have gone to. And the reason is because you can have linemen 3 and 4 yards down the field, and it's impossible to officiate. At the 1 yard barrier, it happens so quickly that the umpire can feel it. The linesman can also help judge it, and you can officiate it more correctly and more consistently, which I think would help the game.
And of course, the red shirts eligible for a bowl is all about developing players, which brings us to the McCaffrey and the Fournette. Are you pro sitting or pro playing? Whose side of this debate are you on?
I'm pro choice because if you're asking me, would I sit my last bowl game, if I'm playing at the University of Colorado, the answer would be no. That's a personal decision for me, though. And so I support Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette for what they're deciding. I don't believe that they owe it to anybody to play in these bowl games that aren't playoff games. I really don't. I feel like our sport has made billions upon billions of dollars on the backs of these athletes, and they're artificially held down and told that they've got to be here for 3 years. It's the only skill set in America that they are absolutely hammered and said, you can't make any money on your skill set until X date.
That's not true.
Like that, but they can go to Europe. There's no other league for a football player.
Okay, well, hold on now. You can't be a lawyer without going to law school and taking the LSAT. You can't be a doctor. So there are other professions where you can have the skills. You can know how to do whatever you know how to do, but unless you serve a certain amount of time, even as a resident, as a doctor, you can't be a fully functioning doctor. I mean, so it's not the only.
Wouldn't you say that that's more intellectual and less skill set? So I would think of it more in the same vein as like a cellist or pianist, right? If I'm 18 and I'm a cellist, I can go out there and do that. If I've got the intellect to be a doctor, I could probably also go into the tech industry and make an app. Therefore, I can make millions of dollars at 18. So that's more of a choice, whereas I feel like it's more of a tangible skill in the sport of football.
Well,
the
counter to that,
the class warfare here with this, Doug. I mean, if just on a socioeconomic scale, I mean, aren't we attacking a very certain person and in particular socioeconomically in our country by holding these particular athletes down for 3 years?
I assume you're talking about the black athlete, but isn't that rule, isn't the 3 and out rule, that's collectively bargained upon. That's an NFL and NFLPA rule. Those are the NFL players agreeing to it. But
you just said that it's the NFL players. So the college players that it actually affects don't get a spot at that table. Now, if they were to get a spot at that table, then it could be collectively bargained, but they don't.
So do you think? Hold on. How many? Hold on, Joe. How many college football players could come out as sophomores, 2 years out of high school, and be drafted in the NFL?
I think my point would be that if there's one, then it's unfair. It doesn't matter how many. If there's one being artificially held down, that's too many.
It's for the.
Hold on real quick. To get back to the CBA.
Yeah.
If I'm an NFL player, I'm directly incentivized to keep a cheaper, younger, more talented workforce out of my labor pool. So why wouldn't I keep them in school for 3 years?
Okay, but again, you're arguing against the NFL and NFLPA. You're not arguing against college football. And oh yeah, by the way, you're talking about one guy here or one guy there. Like again, even if college football players were able to unionize, they wouldn't unionize, and the benefits wouldn't be to one stray guy here or one stray guy there. It'd be to the greatest majority of people, and most of those guys don't play in the NFL, and that's who would benefit from the unionization.
I don't disagree with you, but we started talking about these two individuals, and I said I'm pro-choice.
Right.
Like I think it's their choice. They don't owe it to Stanford or LSU to play in this bowl game.
Why not?
If anything,
why not?
Well, because I feel like LSU and Stanford have gotten the positive end of the deal. The value that they've created and the monetary means that they've generated on the backs of Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey are completely out of whack with the monetary benefits that McCaffrey and Fournette have been able to achieve during that same time frame.
Could not disagree with you more.
They're going to make a decision and say, listen, why would I want to get hurt? Like, even if I get – and I'm not even talking about like a Jalen Smith injury.
Right.
Like, let's just say something gets nicked, and then all of a sudden that gets red flagged in my medical process for the draft, and I drop 5 spots, 6 spots. I mean, is it worth it? I mean, you tell me.
I listen. Do I think it's worth it? I don't know. Like, I think this is a running back specific story, right? Running backs have the shortest lifespan, although that lifespan goes to 30 and they're in their early 20s. But I also think, like, I've heard you bring up the cellist argument. Like, just imagine, though, any other part of the university, you work for a project for the end of the year and you have the end of the year, you go and play with the New York Philharmonic and you're like, you know what, I already got a job. I'm going to pass, even though I got a full scholarship and I perform. I guess my issue is this, Joel. If we're okay with Christian McCaffrey walking away from Stanford because this is a meaningless game, as soon as they lost their second game, they weren't going to play in the college football playoff. Didn't they all become meaningless after that?
Potentially.
So you'd be okay. So you'd be okay.
You're getting into a point though that I think you're trying to attribute it to more guys. See, I guess I would start with this. I think that Fournette and McCaffrey are very unique in the sense that they've earned the right to make this decision by attributing enough stock for their post-college careers to what they've already done. I think that the majority, if not the large majority of players, still need these games to prove themselves. So
that's very fair.
If they're making decisions to sit out, it could also hurt them.